I got everything I want, 'cause I got a roof over my head, the woman I love laying in my bed, and it's alright, alright. I got shoes under my feet, forever in the eye staring back at me, and it's alright, alright, yeah.
Okay, welcome back. Jesse Lee Peterson is here. Kelly is coming up next in the top of the hour. The next hour, Hollywood Update with Kelly. Robert, I want to read a few email questions here for you.
All right.
One is, what aspect of Christianity and Judaism did Islam borrow from?
Oh, Islam borrowed a great deal. As a matter of fact, I show in the book that the Quran is essentially Jewish and Christian texts that have been edited and changed in order to create this new religion. But the whole Quran, you can see, even in the standard understanding of it, is full of biblical stories. The biblical prophets are all in it. In the Quran, Abraham, Moses, and Solomon, and John the Baptist, and even Jesus are all depicted as Muslim prophets who taught Islam. And then their wicked followers twisted their teachings to create Judaism and Christianity. That's standard Islamic belief.
Wow. How long after Muhammad died was the Quran put together?
It seems to have been put together in the 8th century, so that's about 80 to 100 years after Muhammad is supposed to have died. The standard Islamic story is that it was all collected together in the 650s, 20 years after Muhammad died, and then distributed all over the world. But here again, we come up against this absence of any evidence of that, if the Muslims are supposed to have had the Quran in the 650s, it's really weird how they don't mention it for another 50 years.
That is amazing. Let's see here. How similar or difference in our Bible from theirs? I guess you just somewhat answered that from the Quran.
Yeah, well, there are quite a few differences. I mean, the Quran says that our God and the God of Islam is the same. But actually, if you look at the whole idea of God in the Quran, he's not a father, he has no son, and he is essentially a slave master who rules by fiat. And it's a very different view of God from what's in the Bible.
From what I've heard about Muhammad, and it appears that at least the heads of the so-called Muslim religion carrying this out, is that Muhammad, was this great guy, but he had a lot of women, a lot of kids. He was really into that. So if this guy never existed, these guys who are doing that now, they're just doing it because that's what they want to do. It's really not. They're
doing it because they think Muhammad existed and they think Muhammad did it and that Muhammad is the man they should imitate. But the thing is that those stories were made up in order to justify what people were doing in the 8th century and the 9th century. You see, there were various Arab rulers who had a lot of women and were doing the various things that you mentioned. And so they said, well, see, Muhammad did this. Once they had made up the whole idea that there was a Muhammad, then they would justify whatever they wanted to by saying that Muhammad had done it.
Yeah. There are other scholars out there who have done research, I'm sure, on Muhammad and Islamic religion, if we should call it that. Why haven't they discovered that there was no such guy as Muhammad?
Well, there are a few who have. I work in this book from the work of other scholars, some very courageous people who have been working in this field before me. And there's the Inara group, which is a group of scholars in Europe who a lot of them are ex-Muslims, and they have done this groundbreaking work in this. And Mohammed Sven Kalisch in Germany was actually a Muslim who started to study a lot of the same things that I look at in the book, and he realized Muhammad didn't exist, and he left Islam.
I read in your book that the name Muhammad appeared in the Quran only 4 times.
Yes, that's right.
And those times tell us almost nothing about who he was. But Moses is mentioned in the Quran for 136 times, and Abraham is mentioned 79 times. I'll let you respond to that when we come back and tell the folks how to get this book. It's everywhere, folks. You can get it. We'll be back in a moment, and I'll let Robert respond to that. Amazing stuff. Back in a moment.
You step off the straight and narrow and you don't know where you are. Use the needle of your compass to sew up your broken heart. Ask directions from a genie in a box. Don't rock the jukebox
wanna hear some Jones, 'cause my heart ain't ready for the Rolling Stones. I don't feel like rocking since my baby's gone. So don't rock the jukebox, play me a country song before you drop that.
And in his book, Robert Spencer writes, "It is unlikely that Muhammad existed. From the available records, it looks more like Islam slowly came about from early Judeo-Christian belief, and that most of the historical details about Muhammad were later made up to make the religion look official. This is mind-blowing to me." Robert Spencer's with me. He's the author of this book. Robert, before the break, and we are running out of time here, before the break, the name Muhammad appeared only 4 times, and it still doesn't tell us a lot about the guy. But Moses is mentioned 136 times, and Abraham is mentioned 79 times.
Well, this is because Muhammad essentially hadn't been invented yet. And as I said before, it was Jewish and Christian sources that the Quran is made up out of, and they talk about Moses and they talk about Jesus, and so that's what the Quran talks about. And the stories about Muhammad come a little later.
Is Jesus mentioned in the Quran?
Yes, Jesus is mentioned many times in the Quran. He's presented as a Muslim prophet who taught Islam and was not crucified, was not the Son of God, and not the Savior of the world. And this actually, it seems as if some of this comes from heretical Christian groups that were in that area of the Middle East, and that the people, when they were putting together Islam, picked up on and tried to bring into their group by incorporating some of their teachings into the Quran.
The Quran of today call Christians and Jews infidels and devil worship or whatever, worthy of death. But that came about later in life. And who am I right about that?
Yeah, well, that's something that's in the Quran, certainly.
Yeah, but not the original Quran?
Well, the original Quran, if you go back all the way, as I do in this book, then you see that it's actually Christian writings that talks about Christmas, talks about the Eucharist, all kinds of things that are obscured in the Quran as it exists today.
And how did the Quran today come about? Who started this whole Muslim Muhammad thing and the Quran hate the Christians and Jews? Was that started by the radical Islamic?
No, that was started by the Arab rulers, by the people who were in charge of the Arab Empire. Starting in the 690s with Abd al-Malik, who was the leader of the Muslims, and he invented this in order to solidify his empire, and they were fighting against Christians, and so there are a lot of these things that are arguing with the Christians and criticizing Christianity because that was the political situation of the day.
The believers in this religion are not going to want to hear this, because when you believe something and you believe it for so long, you put yourself into it, someone comes along and tell you that this is not real, it's not true, they don't want to hear this.
Yeah, that's certainly true, and I've seen that from the reaction from them so far. But really, I'm talking to non-Muslims also and trying to get them to see, in the first place, that Islam is political. And there's a lot of debates nowadays about whether we should outlaw Islamic law, like the Kansas Senate just voted to do the other day. And people say, no, Islam is just a religion. You can't restrict religious freedom. But actually, Islam is political, and it's been political from the beginning. And that's one of the points of this book.
Tell the folks how to get this book, and then I want you to tell us, what have you gone through as a result of writing this book?
Well, it's available at any self-respecting bookstore, and you can find it online at Amazon.com if your bookstore is hiding it, which I have gotten some reports about. And, in this, the reaction to this book has been the usual from Muslim leaders. They have just said that it's about hate and so on, and Islamophobia, but they never actually deal with the points that I raise. And this is just a historical investigation.
That's what I get from people, too, who hate me for what I do. They never point out, you said this, you are wrong, and here's the proof that you're wrong. They just call you names. They call you racist, and they threaten you, but they never can prove that you're wrong.
That's right. That's what the left does. They really have no arguments, and so that's the only thing they can do.
Are you afraid?
No, I'm not afraid. It's not like I'm not going to die if I don't do this, and so I'd rather die standing up and telling the truth.
Man, you are a brave man, and God bless you for what you're doing.
Well, thank you so much. God bless you, too.
And one last thing, are you, on this book tour now? everybody, their mama hearing about this?
Well, yeah, actually, I'm flying out in a little while. I'm going to speak in L.A. today and tomorrow about the book.
Wow.
And anybody else wants me to come talk, then contact me at director@jihadwatch.org, and we'll set it up.
I'm in L.A., and I have a lot of listeners here in L.A. Is there, if they go on your website, will they find the location where you're speaking in L.A.?
Yeah, actually, yeah. And if you go to frontpagemag.com, then you can get all the information there.
Robert, bless you, man.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you for what you're doing, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, buddy.
This has been the Jesse Lee Peterson Radio Show, produced by Bond Action. To access the full version of this show, visit us on the web at bondaction.org.